where he was the kind of like, I don't know what you call it in English. You know, he'd be the person who people would come to him if they had problems, whether it be drug related, sexual, whatever, you know, work problems, marriage problems. They'd come to him, and so he had a vast collection of like all the people who were like in positions of corruptibility, I suppose. You know, like there were people who would be easily manipulable by the East Germans if they got hold of Steve. And I think the plan of escape being dressed up as American soldiers concocted by Norman, it wouldn't have worked.
Right.
For various reasons stated in Dave's book, which was like Norman just did not look like an American.
Right.
No matter what he would have done, if we'd have shaved his head, if we'd have, you know, given him loads of freckles, he still wouldn't look like an American.
Sure,
you know, because he had the stance and the way he walked. He didn't look like a soldier. I mean, soldiers don't all march and be like this, you know, but like he just didn't have it. And I think, in a way, the plan was to compromise this American soldier in some way, i.e. get him to bring this uniform equipment. The two soldiers were so into doing it because they thought they were going to help an East German escape.
Right.
A great story.
Sure.
Could sell the story, you know, and all this crap. And at the end of it, I think it was just like, I'm glad that they didn't do it.
Yeah.
Because I think what would have happened, what I think would have happened would be that the plan would have fallen terribly through.
Right.
Norman would have then therefore disappeared, and they would have said to the soldiers, well, if we can either send you back and inform the authorities that you have been a naughty boy, meeting first of all with these Germans, which they weren't allowed to do.
Right.
Smuggling in American uniforms, which they weren't allowed to do, and attempting an escape of an East German citizen. All these things, you know, like getting involved with the Russian police and Russian military police and stuff, would have inevitably resulted in dishonourable discharge, and they would have been kicked out, and they would then wouldn't have fulfilled their dreams and aims of being like going to school in because that was the aim of being in the US Army, was so that they could get a good schooling.
Right.
And that would have all fallen through, and I think that after all that, you know, it's a good job that it didn't happen, because I think probably that was the aim of it. If Norman was a Stasi, that was the aim of the exercise. And
fascinating.
There's a lot of signs, I think, that point towards this, whereas Dave is very, very sceptical about the fact that Norman was. I think that there's a lot of signs which do point towards this as being probably what could have probably been the scenario, really, more than anything else.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Also there was another guy, there were two guys in fact, who, I mean, one of them, the one who works in the Pentagon at the moment, he was on special operations here in East. We are standing in East Berlin, by the way. In East Berlin, he was on special operations. Another one was also like put on special operations, train spotting as we called it. And it just happened to be that Norman just so happened to find a Russian officer who just so happened to be the man who controlled all East German train traffic for the Soviet army coming from the Soviet Union into East Germany. He was the man who set up all the timetables and all this. And there's like this information. It's like, you know, how did Norman get hold of this guy? How did he find out? And how come he found out when he didn't really know what the other guy's jobs were properly? You know,
So there are a lot of subtleties.
there's a lot of little bits and pieces which don't really. No, they fit together, but they don't fit together.
Right.
You know what I mean? You know, it's like they don't.
Fascinating.
It's like, well, you know, why did he do all this, and why was for what aims and stuff, and how come he knew that like these two guys were like train spotting? For what reasons were they train spotting? And there's a lot of things I think that seem to point to it, but obviously I've got no concrete proof, and I can't
Sure,
say
sure.
you were definitely,
Right.
because that's
Yeah.
not.
Now, are you still in touch with him at all?
No.
Right. I mean, is he? Because
In 1990, when the wall came down in '89, and Norman had the chance to escape, he had the visas to go to.
Right. I remember
Poland,
the whole. Sure.
Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Romania. He never did.
Yeah.
He appeared a week after we got back, which was like 2 weeks after the wall had come down. At this time I got a new flat. I'd moved out of the Nostitstrasse, so I was about to move out of the Nostitstrasse into a brand new Nostitstrasse. And he offered for some money to help me renovate my flat, because I thought, well, he's not got so much money, and now he's going to the West, I'll help him out, a bit of financial help. And stuff.
Being the kind of person that you are.
Thank you. And he started renovation attempts on my flat, and then I came home one day and he'd just gone, and he disappeared.
Strange.
And, this was after the announced, not directly on the day that they announced that East Germany and West Germany were finally going to like come together because of monetary reform and things like this, but it was pretty shortly after that. It was the first couple of weeks of couple of months or something like that. When did he disappear? The first 3 weeks of January of 1990, he just disappeared. Yeah. And on a whim, when one of the American soldiers was about to leave and go back to the States, just as a laugh, I just thought I'd phone Norman up and see if he's at home with the old phone number that I had, because I'd just found it, just decided I'd call him. And he actually was there. And I managed to entice him into coming over to have a drink. And also in the meantime, Dave had also met Norman.
Right, that's that incident in the book.
I met Norman in the summer.
He talks some incident in the book at Friedrichstrasse.
Yeah, I just met him by pure chance.
Right.
I met him I was getting off the train. I saw him, and I said, like, like, Dave wants to talk to you. It's really urgent because he's right in the building. And he went, all right, well, let's make a meeting. So I set up a meeting, and then this incident with this guy leaving and stuff.
Right. Interesting.
And he was really, really pissed at me because he said, there's no one's going to be there. Dave's not going to be there. No one's going to be there. I went, no, it's just going to be me and you. We're going to have a quick drink. And then he finds out that all these people are there, and he was really, really angry with me. Yeah. And the last time I phoned his number, there's no connection. He doesn't exist anymore. So he's definitely disappeared for good, I think.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting.
The thing is, he's like, where's he gone?
Yeah.
I don't think he was a Soviet spy or anything. I don't think he was that. But I think he's disappeared.
No, that's fascinating. It's fascinating. Well, you've certainly established an interesting life for yourself here in Berlin, and
yeah, it's kind of a bit bland actually.
I wouldn't say that. Between the Penguin Club and the MFS is your label. You started it.
Now it belongs to Torsten myself.
Right, and didn't it? It was. Explain to me again. I'm sorry. It was used to be funded by the East German state.
But what happened was after the wall came down, and I'd been working on this production of a record by a group called Die Vision, the Vision, which was the kind of like East German Joy Division. They were quite well known. They'd been like performing on and off since like the early 80s. They performed with the Totenhosen in Weissensee, in Pankow. Friends of Torsten's. They'd been allowed to play. They'd been given permission to play live.
Right.
And it was like in the like the beginning of '89, they were told by the East German state-owned record label Amiga that the possibilities had come up that they could possibly make a record. And their manager at the time went over and said, "Well, look, let's do a cooperative on this, and we'll do it in the West, you do it in the East. You have all the East German territories. I have the West territories. I'll pay for so much, and you pay for the studio, you pay for all this, and what we'll do is we'll cooperate on this, and instead of making a single, we'll make an album." And then they were looking for a producer, and knowing that the guy who sang on the record, he knew me anyway. He wanted me to produce it. I said no. I'll only do it if you really